Hi, everybody. It's Lynn Miranda. How are you? I'm going to answer a bunch of your questions before the new year. Happy holidays. Charlie Guadano has been kind enough to put, I think, something like 30 questions in this fan hat. So I'm going to answer as many as I can before your eyes glaze over. Let's do it. Okay, Aries asks, is there a musical failure that you'd want to rework? Like a musical that didn't do too well on Broadway that you would want to make your own? This is a great question, and I'll start here. I think In the Heights exists because my brain was trying to figure out how to make The Cape Man work for 2 years. The Cape Man has incredible music. I don't know if you're not familiar with the show. It's a musical by Paul Simon. It starred Mark Anthony and Ruben Blades and Nita Nazario, a million other incredible people, and its failure on Broadway broke my heart. And I really I kept trying to figure out, well, how do you fix it? How do you fix it in a way that allows it to fly and allows it to soar? And I really earnestly listened to that thing a million times, and I couldn't crack it. So I started writing In the Heights because I was like, oh, this was our greatest chance to have Puerto Ricans in roles on Broadway, and it came and went. And when else are Latinos gonna do it? When else am I gonna see a role I could play? And so, in a way, me trying to fix Cape Man in my head, or at least just really wanting to be in Cape Man and it not existing, made space for In the Heights to exist, because its failure scared the crap out of me, and made me think, oh, we have to make our own stuff. We have to make our own opportunities. Okay, Marley asks, living or dead, who would you want to work with again? Or for the first time if you haven't worked with them. Let's see. In terms of folks I have worked with, it's funny, just before this, I was filming a video on behalf of Doreen Montalvo, who was such a good luck charm to me and such a kind and unceasingly supportive presence in my life as a person and as an artist. So I would give anything to be able to write one more tune for her. The last recording I have of her is she actually recorded some abuela vocals for Encanto. I have this one last Mirabel at the end of Family Madrigal that is Doreen's voice. Yeah, I'm not topping that answer. Okay, Lauren. Just curious what your day in, day out sources are, and how many books do you read in a year? I don't know what you mean by sources. If I were a journalist, I would know what that meant. But in terms of inspiration, it's whatever. It can truly be. I saw a Tiny Desk concert this morning while I was supposed to be writing. It totally changed my life and my approach to the tune I happened to be writing. So a part of just being an artist is being open to what the world is trying to give you on any given day, whether that comes on your morning jog or your morning procrastination. And how many books do I read in a year? I have a book of books I'm supposed to read. That's Charlie coughing in the background. And then there's also... but the stuff I always want to read jumps the line. So like I've got this very serious book that I really should be reading, but I jumped that because I read an oral history of the movie Anchorman. Like truly, I read as much as I can, and that's usually the last thing I'm doing before I go to bed every night. Erin, regarding the creative process, how do you get ideas? How do you develop those ideas? What comes first, words or melody? How do you voice those melodies, i.e. multi-parts? What do you hear first? Well, Erin, you're cheating because this is 4 questions. But I love you anyway, and I'll try to answer them as fast as possible. Like I said in the answer to the last question, the ideas can come from anywhere. Usually there's a larger idea you're trying to serve that day, but your approach can be infinite, and that's paralyzing until you start thinking about things like, who is this person that I'm writing for? What are they like? What do they sound like? What is their tempo? Are they nervous? Are they fast? Are they slow? What is their syntax? Is English their first language? There's infinite things you can think about as just a way in. The more you know about the character you're writing for, the easier it gets to write for them, because it just shuts down highways. It goes, okay, this person is not going to hit me with a Shakespearean sonnet because they learned English 2 years ago, or whatever. So you're always kind of trying to winnow choices till it's as specific as the character you're writing for. When it comes to words or melody, that process might yield a melody. You might be hum something to yourself while you're trying to find that. Or it might be a lyric. And when it comes to a lyric, I really try, and this is very much as a Sondheim disciple, I try to do this. Conversational wins. When you've got a melody that sounds like people really speak, it becomes unbeatable because it gets married to that melody. If, for example, try saying "waving through a window" without singing "waving through a window," or "you're welcome" for that matter. You try to find the melody that sits with the way you'd say it. And then when it comes to harmony, it's anything goes. Sometimes I'll come up with a main line, I'll improvise a harmony over it, and I'll like the harmony better and get rid of the main line because the harmony was actually the more interesting melody. So that's really where the fun stuff, that's the gravy, is figuring out voices and counter voices, and a lot of it is just listening to your own stuff over again. As you listen to it, and again, your tastes will form what you make. You'll have one melody that you've written down on a song, and then when you listen to it back, you go, okay, what is my ear missing? What does my ear have the urge to scratch in this? Do I want to hear and that's formed by the kind of music you like. If you like music with lots of harmonies, or if you like a really long melody with almost no backing tracks. I listen to a lot of pop music, so I hear harmonies every time I hear a single melody. And those can be Beach Boys crazy stacked harmonies, or it can be as simple as, a 2-part folk melody, something very simple like Indigo Girls. So, your tastes determine what you hear. Melanie, what is something surprising or interesting about you that you don't usually get the opportunity to talk about? I'm looking around frantically for anything that would be interesting that you should know about. Other than, I don't know, I spend most of the day writing. It looks a lot like goofing off, but at the end of it, I'll usually have at least one more verse, or at least one more melody, or at least one more bass line that I didn't have when that morning started. Today is a day much like that. My most stressful part of the morning is from 6 to 7 a.m. when I'm trying to get my kids on the bus. Once the kids are on the bus, then I can kind of zone out. And this conversation with you is the first scheduled work I've had all day. Most of the time I've just been singing to myself. Jen, what is it like inside your mind? Oh boy, you guys are interested in this. Is there music playing all the time? No. Is there an inner monologue of your thoughts, or just abstract ideas, or just a feeling? Or is it quiet zen most of the time? Boy, is it almost never quiet zen. However, sometimes it's quiet zen. I don't know if you're like me, but for me, some kind of athletic activity will quiet my mind. I'm a big runner, not because I'm getting in incredible shape, because I'm not, but because if I run hard enough and fast enough, I can outrun my own brain. And I feel a nice sense of accomplishment when my little iFitness app on my phone tells me I've done my steps or my running for the day. But it also like clears my mind. I've tried meditation, not for me, but there are other ways of meditating, and that's usually some kind of focused activity on something else that can bring you outside of yourself, whether that is, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, or whether that is, doing the dishes or taking the dog on a long walk. You do what you can do to make space for your brain to be making the things it needs to make. Mindy, how have your parents raising you influenced how you parent? Do you do a lot similarly, or is it more different? I think all of us take good and bad lessons from our parents. The things they did that we don't like we overcorrect in the other direction. And our kids will tell us when they grow up the damage that we have done, wittingly or unwittingly. My biggest thing that is different from my parents is that I'm just home a lot more because I have the privilege of being able to work from home. So, whereas my parents, we didn't have a ton of money growing up, so my parents worked a lot. I'd see them late at night and in the morning and on the weekends. And they were always very supportive. If I was in a play, if I was doing something, they showed up. Like, they were not absentee parents by any stretch, but I'm just home a lot. So it may be that my kids will be like, oh my God, he was just always there and he never left us alone. But that would be interesting, and that would be different from what I had. So, but I had great parents. They were very loving, very supportive parents. I'm trying to be very loving, very supportive, and really doing my best to raise empathetic kids. That's all I care about, that they care about what other people are going through and can recognize themselves in other people, because I think that's the job. Amy, what does a perfect day off look like for you? It's my wife is by my side the whole time. It usually involves video games, delicious food, some kind of physical activity during the day, whether it's tennis or something we haven't done before, laser tag, it doesn't even matter what it is. But just something so that we can then guilt-free have a really big meal and drinks at the end of that moment. And a movie. That's like a perfect day. What is something surprising about working on Broadway that most people wouldn't know? I think my biggest wake-up call was diet. You never think about that, but you really have to regiment your food, because for the 2.5 hours you're on stage, you don't want your stomach to be going, you don't want to be thinking about burping or hiccuping or any of the other things that can happen with your digestive system that you don't want mic'd in front of 2,000 people. So I eat like a monk, and I eat at very specific times throughout the day when I'm in the regular run of a show. I try not to eat past 6 p.m. Dinner, because I don't want to be digesting food. I just want all of the energy from the food I've eaten. I also want to eat food that doesn't make me feel really weighed down if I'm going to be singing and dancing for 2.5 hours. So, a giant carbonara at 7:30 p.m. is like a recipe for a bad Hamilton. Amy, what or who never fails to make you laugh? It's my kids, first of all, because they're insane in the best way. They always make me laugh. And also my friends. I'm still really close with all my best friends from college, and they can say one thing from a thing that happened at a party in 1999 that will set me in hysterics. When you accumulate like 20 plus years of inside jokes, you're really cooking with sauce. Allison, do you feel everyone is creative? And if so, for those of us who don't feel we are creative, how do we tap into that? I do feel we are all born creative. I feel like humans are a creative people. That's why we exist. That's why our line of evolution made it and prospered so widely, and others didn't. We need creativity to adapt and to survive. In terms of artistic creativity, that is that's like a pipe in your brain that is either stays open and is encouraged to keep flowing, or it gets shut down. And I have seen so many people for whom it is shut down through lack of exposure. The only folks I know who really when they say they don't like music, I believe them, is because they were raised without music. They were raised in a home where it wasn't played. But I believe that anything that is encouraged to grow will grow. Plants bend toward the light. So if you're not feeling creative, I would encourage you to watch and do as much as you can and form opinions. It's okay to form opinions about things. In doing so, you create your taste. and your taste informs what you will create. So enjoy, bend toward the light. Jennifer, what activity instantly calms you down? I'm so hyped up right now, I have to really take a breath to think about the answer to that question. A good jigsaw puzzle will make me focus. My 5-year-old's very into them right now, so I'm very happy that there's kind of always one on the table in process in one way or another. That's one example. Jen, is this the same Jen? Let's find out. When creating, writing, what comes first? Characters, plot, or setting? Well, the joke from Merrily Roll Along is generally the contract. But before that, before you have contracts, I find that it can come any way you want. You know, when I picked up the Hamilton book, the character of Hamilton, as described by Ron Chernow, was singular to me. It was like, oh, wow, this is a life force and a writing force. And I'm very curious to find out what happens to him. In The Heights, it was kind of always characters in search of a plot. And once Chiara finally came along and joined me on the writing, that happened a lot faster. And we realized, oh, we really love this community. And what are the most important stories to be telling inside this community? So that one, it started with this love story set in Washington Heights. Then we macroed out to the neighborhood of Washington Heights. And then we refound our characters. So it gained depth and complexity by toggling between those lenses. Chris, what was the last thing you read? An oral history of Anchorman. You asked. Angeline, would you consider bringing Hamilton to South Africa? Absolutely. I've never been to South Africa. I'd be very curious to go. Mallory, what do you hope people will remember most about you? I hope people sing my music, but you can't really account for that. Tastes change and styles change. I hope that the people who knew me remember me as a kind person and a good friend. I hope I'm remembered as a good father, as a good husband, and a really kind and decent person to everyone I met. You know, that's pretty much anything further outside that is outside of my control, so I can't really worry about it. But I can worry about how I treat people and how I move through the world. Elizabeth, do you ever second guess yourself when working on a writing project, and how do you push through it or decide it's worth dedicating so much time when the doubt comes in? That was a little Hadestown sample I sang at the end of your question, Elizabeth. Doubt comes in all the time, all the time, all the time. And it's a question of whether you're going to attack from another angle or whether you're going to put down your pen and stop working on that thing. I would encourage you to attack it from another angle. I think real experience in writing just becomes finding different ways to attack the blank page or hack around a setback. Often a setback is just you've worked that idea and that's the end of that idea, and you need a new idea for the next moment, or you need a new idea that's going to suffuse the 3 previous moments. Usually when you're stuck, it's not actually that moment you're stuck at. It's 2 ideas back. It's fun. I was just talking to Stephen Levinson today. He was the screenwriter for Tick, Tick, Boom. He's a good friend. And he was asking me something about Hamilton and about how the themes emerged. And the first half of writing it is really creating the themes in the first place. I was very surprised when George Washington sang, "Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" I did not say, this is the theme of the show. I just thought, this is what George Washington needs to tell Hamilton right now. And it emerged as one of the themes of the show as I was writing it. You know, I wasn't stuck at the end because I had all this material that I generated when introducing these characters to myself and to the audience. You know, it's usually not, the dead end is usually not in front of you, it's usually behind you. Elizabeth, what are your favorite things about Puerto Rico? I could list a million things, from El Yunque to the zip lines of Orocovis to the beach of Cerro Gordo near Vega Alta, where I grew up. But the real answer is my family and my loved ones who are there. I know that when I go to Puerto Rico, I'm going to laugh so hard. I'm going to eat best food. I'm going to be replenished by these people who have given me so much. Sarah Jane, you've been given a box of stuff you've lost over the years. What's the first thing you look for? I can't tell you the first thing because Charlie doesn't know I lost it. The second thing is probably, that I got an autograph from Alan Menken when I was in 4th grade, and that is lost to time. And I would love to have that back because that was the first time I touched the world I wanted to be a part of. And I'm always grateful to Jenny Schneier for getting me that autograph from her uncle, Alan Menken. And it came true beyond my wildest dreams. So it's probably that autograph. Jen, you got too many questions in here. Gotta get someone else. Sunshine, if you could do or create one thing without being a famous person, what would you do? I would... This is a great question. It's sort of like the pseudonym question, right? It's like why Garth Brooks decided to become Chris Gaines. He's like, I want to write some rock songs without the burden of them being Garth Brooks rock songs. I would probably direct an incredibly violent and beautiful action movie. Because I don't think people are going to be like, whoa, from the guy who brought you Moana, here's this incredibly violent action movie. But I love incredibly violent and beautifully choreographed action movies. So I'd love to take a crack at one of those one of these days. There's still time. Leslie, what do you most look forward to when decades from now it's you whom everyone reveres as the unequivocal elder statesman of composers? Oh, good gracious. Well, listen, I have really enjoyed not being a wonderkind anymore. That was a bit of an identity crisis for a while. When In the Heights opened on Broadway, I was very young. So I was kind of the kid and the pisher, but the benefit of that was I learned from extraordinary masters who are creating musicals, beginning with my friend John Kander, and including Stephen Sondheim and Sheldon Harnick, and this great group of composers and lyricists from a golden age on Broadway. And I learned a lot. And I have a lot to teach, and I enjoy imparting that. And so, I think that one of the big things that really struck in me after Steve Sondheim's passing was that he left behind 2 legacies. He left behind the work, which you can go see 3 Sondheim shows right now if you want to in New York, and that's so thrilling. But also he left this legacy of mentorship. And I take that one just as seriously, and I really got to step my game up in that regard because I do my best to answer all questions from everyone, but you can always be doing more, and no one did as much as Steve. Julie, if you had one superpower, what would you do or change? Freeze time. Easy. Freeze time. Because I could procrastinate, and then even as I'm procrastinating and I'm waiting to the last minute, I could pause at 12:59, write for a couple hours, and still turn the shit in on time at 1 o'clock. Freeze time. Oh, God, what I would give. Jen, I've noticed that whenever you sing part of a song in the middle of an interview, for example, it's almost always in the correct key. Do you have perfect pitch or just a really good pitch memory? I would love to tell you I have perfect pitch. I don't. I do have a good pitch memory. If I've sung something enough times, and then I got to pluck it out of thin air, more often than not, I will be able to pluck it out of thin air. But if you were like, A flat above middle C, I would not be able to do that. That's a whole, call my friend Arthur Lewis for that. He's got that. Elizabeth, what do you enjoy doing with your boys and Vanessa? Well, we're a video game family, but we also, your Mario Karts, your Yoshi's Crafted Worlds, But also, we do Kids Monopoly, we do Life, we do Dominoes. Frankie's very into chess and very good at chess. So we try to limit screens. I'm the worst offender in the screens department in our house, but because the kids also really love playing games together. Also, a lot of 20 questions. I mean, almost no dinner is complete without a 20 questions round. Jen, you're half of these, unless there's 20 Jens. What's your desert island book list? Top 3. I mean, I would probably pick books I haven't read yet. You know, I'd finally get around to Infinite Jest. I'd probably get War and Peace. I mean, Dave Malloy found a great musical in it, so there's got to be something in there for me. And for the third book, I don't know. Can I take like Stephen King's Dark Tower series? Can I take all 7 as one book? I will. Thank you. Madison, how do you get people to pay attention to your work and take you seriously as an artist? This is a hard one. And it's a hard one, not just in the professional sense, like when you want other people to produce your work and pay you to make it, but even when you're young. I watch, my son loves making movies, just like I loved making movies. And something that is, it's not something everyone shares. And sometimes, you know, he'll be playing with his friends and they'll be making a movie and then they'll get bored and want to do other stuff. But he's still really passionate about making the movie. And I'm sure some of you have had some version of this where a friendship is created around the thing you're making, but you're more passionate about the thing you're making than everyone else in the group. And that can be really hard. What I want to tell you is that the world is enormous and your people are out there. The people who care about what you want to make and the people who want to help you make it and make things with you and make your things better. They all exist and they're out there and you haven't met them yet. And that's almost more important than any professional advice I could give you, because if you have a community of artists and you're all dedicated to making the thing, you're really unstoppable. When people ask me how it happened for me so young, my 10-year head start was meeting Tommy Kail when I was 22 instead of 32. I met someone who understood my rhythms and knew how to get the best work out of me. That's the hardest part, and I wish you luck finding those folks. Only have 2 questions left. Jenna. Oh, this is Jen with a mustache on. Was your back sore after Leslie shot you every night? No, it was a very safe fall. I just had to bend over. Just bloop. No, gosh, that was probably the most relaxing part of my night, was getting shot. I got to sort of face down, and then I would see John Rua and Ephraim on either side of me, paddling as the turntable moved us back across the river. No, back wasn't hurt from that. My back hurt for many other reasons, but not for getting shot. And we close out with Jen, the Jen sweepstakes. Jen, when you're writing, do ideas ever come to you in your dreams or specific lyrics or melodies? Yes. Very rarely. You will wake up and you got a whole thing in your head and your job is to write it down before it floats away, like so many of our dreams do. But more often than not, more important than that happens once every few years. If you're lucky, you get a whole thing, you know, like Paul McCartney got Yesterday, and I've gotten dribs and drabs over the years. More importantly, like, your dreams are where you go to work it out. Your dreams are what is connecting your conscious self to your larger unconscious, which is way bigger and working way harder. And while you sleep, your brain is literally trying to make sense of everything that happened to you that day. And I find if you go to bed with an artistic problem, your unconscious mind will go like, okay, we'll work on it tonight. We'll work on it along with all the other shit you gave us today, like the, you know, your taxes and how you're going to fit everyone in your house for Christmas and all the other shit you're thinking about. Give us that artistic question you had. We'll deal with it while you're sleeping. And I find if I go to bed with a really specific pointed question, I will wake up infinitely closer to the answer than if I just stayed awake thinking about it all day. Sometimes your brain needs that break and needs that time away, and sleep is an amazing place to ask for answers. So I hope you do that in your practice. I have found it to be very helpful. And that's all your questions. Happy holidays. Happy 2024. To Jen, the MVP, and everybody else who submitted questions, I'm really grateful to have you, and I will see you next year.